Hello and welcome to Late Night Talks. This is our second episode on video.
Woo, I like the video.
We watched it last week and it actually turned out kind of cool, I thought.
It turned out cool. And I mean, I noticed that there's some things that I do that I don't like. Like I do a lot of this and sometimes I don't get the best angle of myself.
You think that's like a nervous thing?
No, I think it's just something I do. It's like I gotta look cute for the camera and then, but I'm still glad that this is here. And I'm also really excited about this episode because we've been wanting to have a sidekick on.
I remember bringing this up to you
long.
like last summer.
Yeah. This was on our list.
We were like, this is a dream. This is far-fetching.
Never gonna happen.
But how cool would it be if we got a sidekick on our radio show?
And guess what we have on today? A sidekick. His name is Eddie Connor. His business is based in Studio City. He does it's readings basically for a living.
Yep.
And it's just I don't know.
He has clients that he talks to, and he uses these intricate algorithms in his own mind to pick up on things that people are feeling. I don't understand it at all.
I don't understand
it either. Seems to have a business model built off of it. So we're going to talk to him about it. You can find him online at eddieconnor.com. That's where you can learn all about Eddie and schedule an appointment with Eddie. I'm excited. I just want to get to it.
I'm ready, and here we go.
All right, Late Night Talks. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Psychic Eddie Connor. Welcome back to Late Night Talks. We're joined now by our guest, Psychic Eddie Connor. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
We're good. Now, this is something that Samie and I have been talking about for a while, having a psychic on the show.
Okay.
This is like one of our first guests that we've wanted to have on, actually. It's just because it's so interesting, and I feel like a lot of people just, like, I know that I don't really understand a whole lot when it comes to that community, so we're really fortunate to have you here.
Can you explain briefly who you are and where you come from?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Eddie Connor, and I come from North Carolina, and back home we call it North Kakalaki, and sort of Southern fried. So you like everything like that, and you end up developing a quick sense of humor because there's a lot of oppression back there.
Now, is it back there where you discovered that you have this gift?
Yes. Whenever I was a little kid, I first noticed that I was different, as my mom would say. My mama would say, "Edward, you're my strange child, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yes, ma'am, I reckon." She had 4 of us, and they were all boys. And then I would just start seeing beings. I saw angels the first time I think I was about 4 years old.
What does an angel look like?
For me, it started out as obviously you guys are young, so you've been swimming before, and so like if you've ever been in a lake or a pond and you're swimming and the light from the sun is coming through the water and it's beautiful. It just looks like these rays of light coming through water, so it's got sort of a liquid light vibe to it. And we were in the kitchen in this little place we lived in, the projects. And the light started coming through at a diagonal straight across and onto my mom. And I was paying attention to the light because it was literally a consciousness. It wasn't just like sunlight's coming through the curtains. Look at this. It was this liquid light consciousness. It was like alive. And then I felt good because my dad had just beat my mom. And she was pregnant, almost 9 months pregnant. So she was just laying on the floor trying to get past the beating. And I'd come out from underneath the table and the light was coming onto her and me. And then I just knew then because of that everything was going to be okay. But as I'm sitting there,
what tells you that though? Like, are they speaking English to you, saying everything's going to be okay?
Yeah, because I don't speak Spanish. So have you ever had a thought in your mind about something?
Yes.
And so you're thinking about doing your homework, but then out of nowhere, this other sort of thought, and it's your voice in your head that tells you things. So it's an aspect of your imagination, your intuition, your gut instinct, and your psychic ability, which all humans have. Most humans just don't develop it. So I just felt first from the light that mom was going to be okay and the baby was going to be okay. And I'm only 4, so I have a limited capacity to think. And then I saw a pinpoint of light in the middle of it, and then it started moving forward, almost like a Disney thing or a special effects thing. And as the angel came forth, and it was a feminine energy came forth and was just holding the space, and then another one came forth, and they were just hovering there over my mom until my mom started moving again.
Did you tell your mom about this ability or anything like that?
No.
Eventually, did you talk about it?
In my 30s, when I was about
wow.
35, and I'm a third generation psychic. So I'm a psychic. My mom, really crazy psychic, and her mother, really crazy psychic, would get ridiculous things. So I'm a third generation psychic, and on my dad's side of the family, there's some mental illness there. And my grandmother would lock herself, meaning she would take herself downtown to the place where she could get away from her children because they would beat her. But she would go to the mental institution, but she would do spells on people.
And you think that's crazy? That's what you mean by crazy?
Yeah. Well, when you're a kid, you think it's crazy. Now I understand what spells are.
So who do you tell? I'm curious. Who do you tell first?
You don't.
You don't tell anybody?
We did not tell anybody. That's the thing about the South. You don't tell anybody. We were really, really poor. It was a very dysfunctional family, a lot of poverty, a lot of abuse, all kinds of abuse, a lot of alcoholism. And you just did not talk. You did not say things. And it wasn't until I was 37 or 38 that I wrote a story that got published about seeing a ghost at my grandma's house. And my mom kept saying, well, what's the story about? And I said, well, I feel weird telling you about it because it makes me sound like I'm crazy. And she said, well, what is the story about? I said, well, this incident that happened at grandma's on the front porch. And she said, oh, you mean old man Johnson? She's like, we all saw him, but nobody told me. So I saw his face first, just sort of floating into thin air, and then it disappeared. And the next time I saw him was during an electrical storm, because grandma was such a good parent. She put us on the front porch during an electrical storm. And I started hearing a man snoring, just like if I would hear it outside of me instead of in my mind or in my energy. And I turned around and looked on the opposite end of the porch. There was an old man in overalls laying against the back of the house. And on the porch, he was sleeping. He was snoring. And I looked at him, and I looked over at my brothers, and I looked at him, and I knew they couldn't see him. And then he clutched his arm and then started moaning and then fell off the porch into my grandma's flower bed. And I raced across the porch to see if he was okay and to get him out of the flower bed, because my grandma, you don't go in my grandma's flower bed. She will cut you. And so I went to pull him out of the flower bed. And when I reached down to help him, he disappeared in front of me, just disappeared. But he was solid. It was the first solid ghost I'd ever seen.
Now, that must have been, how old were you when that
I
happened?
was 4th grade.
Wow. That must have been terrifying. And did at that moment, did you think that there was maybe something wrong with you? Like you were seeing things, or?
I would have if I hadn't been born in the family I was in, because there was so much crazy flying around me that I actually felt kind of sane. I know it sounds weird, but it's the truth. But I know I never told anybody about the ghost.
And you were scared to tell people about those kinds of experiences because you thought that they would think that you were crazy? Is that part of it, or?
That's part of it.
Okay.
Well, and I had a bunch of strikes against me. We were really poor, so we lived in a trailer park. We left the projects. We moved into a trailer park, a lateral move.
So you didn't feel like you were in the kind of place to tell someone like that, and people would think you're sane. And do you still have that fear when you're just talking with someone and you tell them I'm a psychic? Do you think that people?
That's the other, I don't do that. That's one of the reasons I wouldn't go to parties when I first got to LA and functions, because as soon as people hear that you don't get to enjoy the party. You're automatically working. And I've always been called a soul intuitive. That's what my clients have called me for 25 years. And I really resonate with that. But no, I don't introduce myself as a psychic. So I actually realized just this moment, I have never fully identified with that.
Okay.
So what is it that you do with your clients? What is the help that you give them? What is the service that you provide?
Every client's different, and everybody comes for their own reason. Some people are in dire straits when they come, and then some people are just in a really good place when they come. And so the average person that comes for a reading will want to know about love and money and career. And so I will ask for your birth name and your birth date. I use those two pieces of information with your voice. When you have those three elements, especially if you're physically in the room with me, I have those three elements that belong to you and no other being on this planet and or in the universe. So it's indicative of your specific energy. I will ask them up front what areas they want me to tune into. For 17 or 18 years, I did what they call a cold read. That's where I would get your information, and I would just close my eyes and prattle off like a crazy person for an hour till your time was up. And now I like to find out what you want to talk about. If you ask about career, I'll ask you what you do now for career and give me one specific question, because that's like a birth date and a name for me. And then I'll go into the time frames, the futuristic events where you're blocking yourself, where you're contradicting your energy, where you're subconsciously getting in your own way and you can't get out of your own way. So essentially, I'm talking to your higher self, which is the part of you that's 99.99% invisible, and you're housed in a 0.1% physical apparatus. So when the Bible talks about heaven on earth, the word heaven is just a word for expanded consciousness. We're talking to your heaven self inside of your earth self and marrying your heaven and earth together. And I tune into that part of you when people come for readings.
Some people are very skeptical of what you do. How do you explain this concept to them?
I don't. Well, I'm not going to waste my time explaining this concept to somebody that doesn't want to hear about it and who's a die-hard skeptic. It's a waste of their energy. It's a waste of my energy. Mm-hmm. Just like I would never go to a casino and ask everybody at the poker table why they're gambling and throwing their money away. It's their experience. I don't understand it, and it's none of my business. And I really, because of this ability, I've learned to really respect other people's decisions, even when you see them in their car heading off a cliff, metaphorically, over and over and over again, because we have free will. So I don't do the skeptic game. It's a waste of time.
Why do you think, like you've obviously have seen tons of people, you've been doing this for a while. What is it that attracts people to you? What kinds of things in their lives do they go through that leads them to you? Is it most people are depressed and they just need some extra help? Is that why you get a lot of clients, or is it other things? Is it just a big range of things?
It is a big range of things. It's a great question. In the beginning, I would get every whiny, sucky, bitchy, moany energy vampire on planet Earth. And I did this 3 years without ever accepting any money for it because I wanted to hone my craft. Mm-hmm. And I did this on the side while I was teaching dance and working as a visual designer for corporate America. So I loved it so much, I was obsessed with it. And once I stopped trying to save people, which was my modus operandi growing up, my modus operandi was always to save my mother from my dad and my stepdad, and then to save my mother from poverty, then to save our family from the other bad things. So I'm wired to protect and save. So when people in the beginning would come to me, I was attracting people that would take as much as they could and only create that kind of an exchange back. So now, 25 years later, the type of people I get are open-minded, open-hearted. They're usually old souls. They're often very creative and artistic. They often have a plan for themselves or an idea of what they're supposed to do when they grow up. Even if they're in their 50s, they know what they're supposed to be doing when they grow up. And those are the best ones. I don't get really depressed people anymore. I just don't. And my friends keep telling me that the thing they love the most about the readings is that it's fun, that it's funny, that we're cutting up and we're cracking up and everybody's snorting until 7-Up flies out of their nose, and the hour passes before you know it, and you have really great insight in how to get out of your own way so that the things you want can come to you.
So what's an example of somebody who would walk in to a consultation, they would come to you and say, hey, I just got this new job, and then what do they ask you for?
They'll ask me oftentimes it's like, do they like me there? Am I liked there? Am I going to be able to stick this out? Am I going to get laid off whenever the layoffs come next year?
And then what are the kind of answers you can give them?
It depends on that's a great question. Every human on planet Earth has a different belief system about every subject. So for right now, if an angel came down in this room, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in this room right now. If an angel came down in the middle of the room right now and said, Samie, I love you, and then disappeared, there would be about 50 different perspectives from us 5 people, what we saw, what we thought we saw, what we heard, what we thought we heard, what we felt, what we thought we felt, what we sensed, what we thought we sensed, what we intuited, what we thought we intuited, because we're so based on three-dimensional, what you can touch, taste, see, and hear. And that's only 1% of our lives. So somebody who comes in and asks about work, if you ask about work, it's going to be a totally different answer for you based on your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, your frequencies, and your heart's desire, and your contradictions, your shortcomings, where you get in your own way. So my job is to read where you're blocking, what you're doing to block, and your contradictions, while simultaneously telling you the outcome of your potentiality, and then give you specific information based on that, so that you will feel something shift inside of you if the information is resonating with you.
So that's what's different about you as opposed to maybe somebody like her or I. You can read those things, but her and I don't necessarily pick up on those frequencies. Is that right?
Well stated. And the reason why I'm able to pick up on those frequencies better than most people is because 25 years I have been practicing and practicing and practicing. So how did the kid get to Carnegie Hall? He practiced. So I practice it every single day. And so I have an inside line now. There's a familiarity to it now.
Okay. Well, and you also do future predictions, correct?
Yes.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit more about that in a little bit, but we're
We're going
to
to ask you about that in the future. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with Eddie Connor. All right, welcome back to Late Night Talks. We're joined by Eddie Connor. I want to apologize because it looks like we had a video malfunction for the last 2 minutes or so of that last segment. We're back now. We're back on video.
We're back. Hopefully you guys got that last part. But what I really want to know is just, you have to deal with people's futures, and sometimes I'm sure you might see something that would make you uncomfortable, that you don't want to tell them. Mm-hmm. Have you been in a situation like that before? And
yes, and where predictions come from, where futuristic predictions come from with a person, if you had come in and you're sitting down and you ask about love or money or career, the prediction comes from every thought you've ever had about career, about money tied to career, how you're perceived in that career, if you love it or if you hate it, if you want to stay in it or not stay in it. So every thought, feeling, and frequency, every belief you've ever had about that one subject is stockpiled in your energy field and projected forward based on your beliefs, if you're going to be successful or not. So yes, sometimes you have to tell them that, you have this much resistance and this much desire. So your resistance is outweighing your desire. And then what the higher self will do, or the soul will do, or the angels or the spirit guides, whichever beings come forth for that person, will help me understand how to tell you how to ramp up your desire to this and get your resistance to this. And when you flip the energy, it changes the prediction. But there's always, and I'm hearing this for the first time, there's always two predictions and two veins of consciousness for every person who asks about a prediction in every single subject. There's the prediction that comes if they flip the resistance into greater desire, which is more favorable. You're going to like hearing it. Oh, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be da-da-da-da-da. And then there's the flip side of it. If I don't do any of this work and I fall backwards into greater resistance and less desire, then it's a long road to the top of that mountain, pushing that boulder up.
And you said you were hearing that for the first time.
Yeah.
Did you hear something now from?
Yes. Yeah. That was more of a feeling.
Okay.
Audio feeling, meaning that's why I love doing what I do so much, because just based on you asking the question, that came through, and that's never come through before that way. So with every person, there's two aspects of you, really. There's the good part and the bad part, the light part, the dark part. And if your desire is big enough, but you're still in a dark, deep, negative place, the light will come through enough for them to give you some morsels to hold on to give you the impetus to amplify your desire and lower your resistance.
Now, is this algorithm the same for all psychic types? I know you don't like to be referred to as a psychic.
That's okay.
But for the people we see on TV, the people we hear on the radio, do they all use that same algorithm, or is every psychic different?
Every psychic's different. Just like everybody you've ever dated's been different. Even if they look the same and acted the same and had the exact same body type, they're going to operate off different frequencies, for lack of a better way to say it, because beliefs are invisible things. Frequencies are invisible things. Your thoughts, your feelings, your imagination, your pretending, all of those are invisible ways that the non-physical world works with the physical world. For example, when I am talking to you or answering your questions, I'm answering it as Eddie, but I'm also answering it based on the energy around the two of you and me to sort of create a better platform, for lack of a better way to say it. At the same time, the universe doesn't communicate with us through words. It doesn't talk. It doesn't see or hear. It doesn't have eyes or ears. It only communicates with us through our feelings and our imagination. So your feelings create 99% of your reality, and your action and your words creates only 1% of your reality. That's why women are more powerful than men, because women are more attuned to their feelings, and they're usually more capable of expressing them without too much backlash. Men usually aren't. So they'll have a lot of feeling pushed down, and they're kind of, and I mean this respectfully, retarded in their feelings, where women are way more free with their feelings and emotions. So when the universe talks to me, or you, or God, Christ, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, it is communicating using your imagination, because your imagination and your intuition are twin flame souls. You can't have one without the other. Just like you can't be a physical body and not be 99.99% invisible too. It's that perfect balance. So you have to learn to hear through, feel through, sense through, connect through your imagination, feeling vehicle in your gut brain.
Can I throw a hypothetical at you? Let's say you sat down and you consulted two boxers. You got to know them really well.
Mm-hmm.
Could you take those feelings you get from them, you get the range of intuitive feelings from them,
Mm-hmm.
could you figure out who might win? Because these guys have 99% of their success is in their mind. If you could read it, couldn't you figure out who might win a fight?
99% of their success is in their imagination and in their feelings, in their cells, their atoms, their molecules, not in their mind. But the mind is, like if you left the planet right now, if you snapped your fingers and your body fell to the floor and your soul went back up into non-physical, would you still have a mind?
I'm not sure.
You would. You wouldn't have a brain, but you would have a mind. Your mind, your invisible mind, desire brought you from the invisible world and chose this body, this lifetime, this frequency, to do what you came forth to do, your pitfalls and your good stuff too. So back to the specific question, you can sometimes do that, but what happens when you get two people competing with each other? If one of them is definitely pulling on the purest positive desire, focusing on what they do want instead of what they don't want, how they want the end result to feel, and they're living in that bubble, that's going to be your winner. But what starts happening, they're showing me Ronda Rousey as an example. She, I think, psyched herself out in her mind. I feel she let go of her feelings and her knowing and her not desire, because her desire was huge. Her desire after that defeat was greater than any other fight she'd ever had. But her resistance was simultaneously as big as her desire. So if your desire is 100% pure and your resistance is 100% pure, where does it leave you? Stuck. And where does it leave the person that's your, quote, opponent, who has 51% desire and less resistance? That one breath is the make it or break it point. And because we change our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs every 100th of a second, we think 60,000 thoughts a day, but every single time you change your thoughts or switch gears or switch topics, then you're in a different bubble of consciousness.
Now, you brought up someone, Ronda Rousey, and I'm guessing you've never met her before, but
No.
that just kind of appeared, and you developed feelings about her.
Thank you.
And does that happen when you see a case or a case that law enforcement are working with that you eventually feel like you need to reach out to officials or anything like that? Because we've heard about that happening before. I just wanted to know if you had any experience with that.
They just said because humans are predominantly visual mediums, meaning we focus on visual things, that's because it's a physical focused reality here. It really isn't, but we think that it is. So when you give a person a label or an identity like Rhonda, we all know who she is. As soon as you have something to lock on, this stops being nebulous, frivolous, weird, woo-woo information. And then you can go, oh, that's a great example. So they showed that as an example just based on the topic of conversation. But the images, pictures, hearing things, feeling things, sensing things, hearing sometimes disincarnate voices, all of that is a compilation. It's like this weird metaphysical potpourri of different things that come through when you tune into anybody.
Is it harder to keep relationships when you're a psychic?
I've been single for 22 years. I would say probably, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, part of it's a choice because I'm lucky. I like myself and I love my life and I love what I do for a living. And the fact that I am even here having this conversation is part of something I've known since I was 5 years old. And that is that I would get to grow up and utilize the very thing that, almost killed me as a kid. Because I knew there was something uniquely different about me, but I also thought it was bad. And I got that confused with a bunch of other things, being poor and being abused and blah, blah, blah. But no, just being here and getting to do this is the desire outweighed the resistance. And then I got to move to this city across the country, the exact opposite state across the United States, East Coast, West Coast, straight line right to California, and get to do what I was born to do for a living.
Right.
So yeah, it makes relationships hard if I let it.
Right. And I'm curious because this is very important to you. The non-physical world is important to you. This is a big part of your life. Why do you feel something that's so important to you isn't taught in, like, say, the public school system? Why do you think this isn't being taught to people as if it is, this grandiose idea that we should all be paying attention to?
A lot of grandiose ideas that we should all be paying attention to has been beat out of society. So back where I come from, the reasons the school system, the educational system in the southeastern United States was built around your mother and father working in a textile mill or a steel mill or a cotton mill. And they would put your family in row houses, and they just taught the children enough about reading and writing to be able to grow up and work in that factory where your parents worked. So most of structured education is set up in a limited way. But what happened as a result of that, it wasn't enough. The souls coming forth had more desire. They wanted to learn. They wanted to connect. A lot of people will go to church to connect to a higher power or to their higher self, for lack of a better way to say it. A lot of people will go and do continued education. But within every single one of us is our inner knowing. Do you know what you want to be when you grow up?
Right now, I'm on the track to be a journalist.
Good. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I'm on a track to be a broadcast journalist as well.
Why? One sentence or less. Because?
I have a passion for it, and I really enjoy doing it and finding meaning.
So what they said when you said that was, I want to know the effing truth. And I can't stand a liar. And I want to find a way around it. And you're packaged perfectly for it because you're very unassuming when you choose to be. And you can get a story and they don't even know that you're doing it. So that's what your part of your soul's standby gifts are as a journalist who's seeking the truth, who wants to get the truth out to the planet. But you're also in a kind of vulnerable position because you have to be careful right now on your way to building that platform, just like you do. So you can't rock too many boats right now. You can do just enough to get you to the next level, but not so much that you end up getting kicked out of the very thing you feel like is part of your life purpose. So you're using your instinct, your intuition, your empathic abilities, your sensitivities, your gut knowing to help you get where you want to go, and you do it more than you even know that you do it, or you wouldn't be sitting here right now doing this.
What are you getting from me? I want to know. What do you think about me?
A little bit of a headache.
Eddie, I need to know.
So what was give me a question connected to your career.
All right. Let's see. Maybe this is a fair question. What are my chances of being a successful journalist?
100%. What's your resistance about it?
Am I going to be a successful journalist?
Yes, but what's your resistance about it?
I'm not sure what that means.
Meaning, where do you get in your own way with it? What bad habits do you have that get in the way of you becoming a successful journalist as quick as you would like to? Because things don't come to you as fast as you would like them to. You would like them here yesteryear.
In other words, maybe I would say something like, "Oh, I don't have the work ethic that I might need," or maybe I have too many distractions at home.
There you go.
Maybe I have too much on my plate.
Well, it's beautiful. Now, where did that come from? Did it just come from your brain, or did it come from your whole self?
I'm trying to picture what a student might say who would be in a session with you.
Yeah.
I'm not really talking about myself, but I want to know how do you think I'm talking about myself?
Ask about yourself. Shift the energy back to you.
Okay.
For fun. I'm not going to say, "Oh, I should have led with this." You're hysterical, by the way. But I should have led with this. I didn't know we were going to do impromptu readings. It's okay, but here's the deal: I will never say anything on camera or television that would be something I wouldn't want somebody to say to me on camera or television. I'll pull you aside after the fact and talk about the fuzzy handcuffs under the bed and stuff, which is a joke.
No. Do I have fuzzy handcuffs under my bed?
I have no idea. That's another thing. I am so private and I like my anonymity and I respect everybody else's. But 90% of the intuitives that do what I do for a living, that's the first thing they go to. They want to know where the crack is in the facade. They want to know where the vulnerabilities are. And often they will prey on that to get you to keep coming back to them instead of filling you up with what you already are, which is pure positive energy.
Yeah. I was talking with my grandmother today. I was telling her I'm going to be talking to a psychic today. She told me this story. She said about 5 years ago, a psychic said that my great-grandmother was going to die very soon. My great-grandmother is still alive today, and she's turning 95 and a half on Sunday. Basically, 5 years ago, a psychic said, "You're going to die," and then she didn't. Not every psychic is correct 100% of the time. I assume that's common knowledge.
No psychic is 100% accurate ever. Not ever 100%. And the ones that tell you they are, you better run for the hills.
How accurate are they?
I don't know how accurate they are.
How accurate are you?
I am in the 90%. And that is lucky for me. But I feel like I am because I don't have the distractions. I live a really peaceful, conscious life. And my whole purpose is to be of service, to help other people get to their purpose. That's what turns me on. And, I like me some Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I will put my ice cream down, and I will do this first and then go eat my ice cream later. So it's like no psychic is ever 100% accurate. We have days that are better than others. There's days where I feel like, based on the feedback I get from the client, that everything you said was spot on. It blew my mind. There's no way you could have known that. And those are days where you're more clear and more rested and more connected and more aligned. Your prayer's a little bit more on point. You're walking out in the sunshine. You're communing with nature. You're connecting with people you care about. And you bring your A game to every interview you do because the intention arrives first. That's a great question for you guys, you young journalists. Petite flower princess, giver goddess journalist. What arrived to this meeting first today? Stacy and myself or our energy?
I met you and I shook your hand first.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I think the correct answer would be the energy. And okay, this is why. And I'm looking at this from your perspective. Is that maybe the energy is there because we were thinking about you guys and trying to figure out what was going to happen, and that's why it was
but
there.
Isn't that my energy? Because I'm the one thinking it.
You're both thinking it. You both knew that we're coming today, and you knew it for how many weeks?
Maybe 2 or 3.
So which arrived here today first? Your thoughts about us being here or my body?
The thoughts.
Which arrive first? Your feelings about how it may or may not go, or my body?
The feelings.
Your imagination. Is he going to be a douche, or is he going to be fun to hang out with, or my body?
The fun douche part.
The fun douche. I would like some fun douche, please. So it's like your energy, it's 99.99.9% of what and who you are. Your imagination, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, all will meet you. If you have a date on Sunday at 6 o'clock, what's going to meet you at your date first? Your anxiety and your excitement. Your anxiety, your excitement, your desire, your resistance, your good feelings, your bad feelings. And the longer you think about the date, when you show up, if he or she does not respond to you the way you would want them to, what does that tell you? That my nervousness arrived to the date before my excitement did. My nervousness was this big, my excitement was this big. So what does that tell you you need to do for the next date? Line your intention up, your mission statement, your desired end result. My intention was that this would go in a higher way than any of us thought that it would go. And that we would have fun and connect, even if there's some skeptical stuff playing out too.
Is this the kind of stuff you bring up on your first dates?
It has been.
Really?
Yeah.
How does a date respond to that when they're meeting somebody for the first time and they're a psychic and they say
They don't know I'm a psychic usually.
because they're not psychic themselves.
No, everybody's psychic. Every human on planet Earth is psychic.
Okay.
So you think that someone, if they dug deep enough like you did and kind of were open to their abilities, they could possibly go to the level that you're at right now.
Oh, yeah, or way even further. How many years have you been in school to be a journalist?
About 1.5.
And so go back to the very first thing you did as a journalist.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. And now go to where you're at right now. And you can already see where you practiced, you learned. The average person will see the things that don't feel good and throw their hands up and walk away and go do something else. But you're not that way. And you're not that way either, Austin.
Oh, thank you for adding that in.
But
I appreciate that.
So you want to find, you especially, you too, a fast track to put yourself in the spotlight, but you have to both be careful of this for this reason. You will both be in the spotlight in this lifetime, and you will be in the spotlight a lot, maybe not as much as you would like sometimes, but the reason you're not going to be in the spotlight immediately is because you don't have enough stuff lined up to ground you in that, what you're going to be once you're in it. Meaning, how many people do you know who become rich and famous, quote, overnight, and then they end up in rehab somewhere, or they end up shaving their hair off and smashing a paparazzi's, window? It's like you want the grounded foundation, infrastructure. There's infrastructure, there's fear structure. You don't want to get to a high point in your career and then go, oh my God, how am I going to top myself now? You want it to be this wonderful stepping stone. You don't want it to be a quantum leap every time because it's too much stress on where you came from, where you're going, and then how you're perceived. How you're perceived at this age is really, really important to young people.
I want to thank you for coming in today. How much does a consultation cost, and where can people find you?
I'm in the Valley.
Studio City.
Yeah, I'm around Studio City, and a 1 hour reading is $250, and 90 minutes $350, and 2 hours is $400.
Great. And what's your website?
EddieConnor.com.
EddieConnor.com, and that's where they can make an appointment and find all kinds of good stuff about Eddie Connor.
Well, thank you so much. That was really interesting.
Good.
I think we learned a lot. We didn't know a whole lot.
We even learned a little bit about ourselves.
We did. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week with Kimberly Pressler.
Former Miss USA, and now she's kicking butt in the journalism world.
Yes, she is over at ESPN being a PBA announcer.
That's right.
Eddie, I want to thank you again for joining us.
Thank you
This has
so
been
much.
another episode of Late Night Talks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.